Live with the community. This is the Microsoft Power Platform Community Call for July 2022. Welcome, everybody. It's a fantastic year so far, and we are so excited to have you here with us today in this monthly community call. Let's talk about the agenda for the day. We're going to talk about some latest updates. We're going to start a new segment called Monthly Community Tips with Todd Baginski, so we're excited for that. We're going to have our group picture time, a time that everybody loves, and then we're going to get into our all-stars of the day, Lindsay Shelton, Dion Taylor, and Norm Young. Lindsay's going to talk about building a SharePoint document libraries approval system. Dion's going to talk about Microsoft Teams approvals in Dynamics 365 using Power Automate. Woo woo. And Norm Young is going to cover how to connect Dataverse to Microsoft Teams. So I'm loving the Better Together stories here this month because it shows how awesome the technology overlaps with one another. Now let's talk about your opportunities. We want everyone to be part of this community call. That means everyone is welcome to present. And in fact, we've made it easy for you to request a demo spot. You can go to aka.ms/ppcc demo request, submit your information, and we will get back to you and start lining you up in the agenda. Anything is welcome. Everyone is welcome. This is your community call, and we want you to feel empowered to show off your amazing demos and information that is available that the community is absolutely going to love to see. So please don't hesitate to submit that form. Let us know what you'd like to demo on. We would absolutely love to see it. Again, everyone is welcome. We also wanted to remind you all that we have Power Platform samples available. So if you're new in the Power Platform space, this is a great way for you to start getting to know the technologies and the solutions. These samples were created by the community, for the community, and that means that they are free for you to use, to learn from, to start out as a foundation for a solution, or just to simply collaborate with others. You may see something that you like and you may think of a feature that you can add. You're absolutely welcome to do that. It is open source. And so you are free to use them, contribute to them, collaborate with them, and we would love to see you get more involved. Now, you may be wondering, hey, I've got some cool samples that I'd love to share. I'd love to help update some of those samples. How could I do that? Well, funny you should ask. We have a Sharing is Caring session and program here for you. Now, Sharing is Caring, it may be new to you. It's been established in the community for quite a while. It's a program that provides hands-on guidance to you in a safe space environment. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that you are able to join live sessions with members of the community, MVPs, Microsoft employees, and we're going to work and walk you through together how to accomplish a variety of tasks. So, for example, today, in fact, an hour after this call, we're going to have a Power Platform contributor Sharing is Caring session. That means if you want to learn how you can contribute your samples into those sample repositories, we're going to walk you through how to do that. We're going to show you, and all you need is a browser. So you may say, I don't know anything about GitHub. That thing's really confusing. What's a fork and a pull request? I don't really know anything about that. Don't worry. We're going to show you, and it's going to be a safe space environment. And in fact, that means it's not recorded. So you can ask any and all questions that you would like. It's a great collaborative opportunity to also meet and work with other members of the community. So everyone is welcome. We've got a number of sessions available. We are scheduling them as they come up into the summer months. We know it's kind of slow right now. Everybody's taking vacation, so we're kind of limiting the number of sessions available. But Writing for the Web is one of our newest, as well as Power Platform Samples contributor. And coming soon from our newest community program manager, Hugo Bernier, who loves Power Pages, a two-part session. So be on the lookout for that. It's going to be really, really cool. And in fact, if you do want to sign up for that session today, you can still do that. All right, now, once you have contributed to this amazing community, we want to recognize you for that. We want to celebrate you. We want you to see that you are cared for, that we appreciate all of the contributions that you're making in the community. And you can do that by signing up for our community recognition program. This is powered by Credly. You may say, Credly sounds familiar. Yep, it should. It's the same Credly that powers the badges that you get when you are certified with Microsoft. These badges from the community will sit right alongside all of your certification badges. They will be available to post on LinkedIn, to post on Twitter. You can associate them to your LinkedIn profile. You can cut them out, put them on the fridge, give them to mom. Everybody's going to be proud of you. We know we are. We absolutely want you to get more involved, and we want to recognize and celebrate all the amazing work that you're doing for a variety of topics. We've got independent publisher connectors, power contributor. We've got sharing is caring. Our presenters today will get a badge for having presented. So that's really our way of giving back in a eco-friendly way, and a way that's going to assist you in showing that you're contributing to this community. You may want to share it with clients and managers, and that's really an awesome opportunity for you to be able to do that. So don't hesitate. We do need you to opt in, aka.ms/M365PNP-recognition. This will allow us to connect your email address with Credly to your GitHub account or other means of contribution. You only need to do it once. It only needs to happen once, not once a year, just once in all time, and we'll track you forever, but not in a weird stocky way, we promise. All right, let's talk about some community events. The first one we want to highlight is, of course, the Low Code Revolution. This is an event that happens monthly. New episodes recorded by our favorite host, April Dunham. It includes stories and insights from industry experts, how you can revolutionize your applications and solutions within the Power Platform. So definitely check that out. Those are going to be posted, and you can be part of that. Now, we also want to talk about the Power Platform Conference coming up in September. I hope everyone is excited about this. It's going to be a really amazing event. A lot of new sessions are getting added all the time on the site. We are working through all of our Microsoft presenters right now, and so there is a ton of new content that's going to be loaded up on the site in the next few days. Definitely check that out. We've got the early bird pricing is going to be coming to a close on July 25th. So if you want to get your best price, you can absolutely do that. And be on the lookout, by the way. All the speakers have been given a coupon code that includes an additional $50 off. So go find your favorite speaker, maybe reach out to them. Ask them if they would like to give you their code. They will benefit by it, you'll benefit by it, and everybody will be happy. And it's going to be an amazing conference. We're working really hard to make it really incredible. We know everybody's excited to get back in person and start collaborating in person and realizing, hey, everybody has legs and you can walk. That's amazing. So we really want to see everybody there, and it's going to be an awesome, awesome, awesome event. All right, so now I want to hand it over to Todd Baginski. He's going to take us through a new segment that we're going to see monthly, the monthly community quick tip. Todd, take it away.
All right, thanks, Dave. This is a new segment that we have, everybody, and we're going to do this each month. And so this is our new segment called Monthly Community Quick Tip. And so in this segment, we plan to showcase a Power Platform tip from the community. So to get the party started, I'll present my own quick tip this month. Then in future months, I'll be presenting the quick tips from everyone in the community. So if you have a quick tip, please reach out to us and submit your idea at that same place that Dave mentioned before, aka.ms/ppcc demo request. And I'll put that up here on another slide in a second. Okay, so this month's quick tip. These quick tips will always be very fast, like quick tips. So it's going to be 90 seconds to 120 seconds per month. So this is my quick tip of the month. You can use the toggle control to create reusable functions. So how do you do this? To do this, first, you set the default property of a toggle control to a global variable, like I've done here. Then, in the app onStart method, you'll set the global variable to false. Here you can see I've done that with the simple set statement. Okay. Then you'll set the global variable to true to cause the control to fire. Here you can see I'm in a different screen, screen 1, where my toggle control was actually in screen 3. And I'm using a buttons on select method or function here to set that global variable to true. When that global variable value changes, the onCheck method fires in the toggle control. You're looking at that method right here. That toggle control will then run this reusable code, and in this case, I'm setting another global variable. Notice in the tree view, I'm on screen 3 with toggle 1 again, and I'm setting a different global variable called GBL result that says this value was set in screen 3. Now, we're going to add a direct data reference to the toggle control on all the screens to call it. We do this to ensure the toggle control fires without having to navigate to the page where the toggle control exists. A label is a perfect place to do this. So here you can see in my label where I have the code highlighted that says toggle1.value. This is where I make the direct data reference to that toggle control. You can easily hide these labels if desired. So now when I'm in screen 1 and I click the button, I'm using a label to display the GBL result that was set by the reusable code inside of my toggle control. So the behavior is, after I wired up all those things in the previous screens, I click the button, and now I can see this value was set in page 3 appear here on screen 1 in the app. So that is my monthly community quick tip for the month. You can learn more about that quick tip at that short little YouTube video, or just rewatch what I did here. If you're interested in getting the code that has that, I'd be happy to share the app with you. I'm going to post that, and we'll give a link to it in the blog post that follows up with this community call. So you're next. Send me your community quick tip so I can highlight it next month and in months coming in the future. aka.ms PPCC demo request. Just make your request there and we will get your quick tip on the call. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Todd. Fantastic tip. We're excited to see everybody else's tips as well. So don't hesitate to share those. We want to see them and highlight the amazing things that you're doing in the community. All right, what time is it? Picture time. So feel free to turn on your camera if you'd like to share your fantastic faces in Twitter and the social networks, so everybody can see, and we will start recording here in just a moment, give you another opportunity. Right, looks like we're pretty full now. Okay, all right, everybody start waving. Show the community how awesome you are. Let's, yeah. All right, countdown. All right, there we go. Woo. Everybody wave. Looking fantastic. All right. Really great. Thank you, everybody. All right. Well, then let's move on to our superstars of the day. We are going to have 3 fantastic demos today. Our first is going to be by Lindsay Shelton on the topic, building a SharePoint document library approval system. Lindsay, take it away.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and steal the screen here. I'm here to talk to you way too quickly about how you can build a SharePoint document library approvals system. And I just, at least a layer of approvals, because we've got multiple layers going on here. I would introduce myself really briefly. I'm Lindsay Shelton, and I'm an application programmer at the Stowers Institute for Medical Research. I like to joke that the scientists are working to save lives, and I'm working to help the scientists save files. So, you know, putting in the work in whatever way I can. I'm a former teacher. I spent 10 years as a classroom teacher, and I'm also a very proud cat mom. So if any of that is interesting to you, feel free to connect with me at lshelton_tech on Twitter. So most of my presentations have to do with a specific use case or, you know, something that's actually going on in my work life. So what did our users need? Where did this come from? One of our departments had a pretty outdated old Access database on-prem system for their standard operating procedure documents. So this was something they needed to access regularly. There's, you know, legal things and regulation reasons why they needed to be able to get to all of these SOP documents, because this library governs everything that this department does. And it's also something that the entire institute needs to be able to see. And these were difficult to get to and all outdated. So they wanted to have a more modern solution. So some of our requirements were, we wanted something that was mobile friendly, because when the lab members go what we call behind the barrier, they don't have access to laptops or computers. So they could only access these SOPs on their phone. So we figured, let's go cloud-based. Let's do something that's less restrictive, but still, you know, controlled by things like MFA, Azure AD, et cetera. And they also needed us to be able to bring over multiple levels and layers of approvals. It's not just a one and done where one person is assigned the approval, they look it over, they say, yep, the SOP is good to go for another year. So the basic process, you'll notice, is not actually very basic because there's a lot of words on this screen, but we essentially have 5 different flows going on. We have a scheduled daily flow where, and this is just to give you an overview of the process if you're needing to build something similar for your own organization. We have a scheduled daily flow that looks at a completed date and says, okay, if that's 335 days out, meaning, okay, we're within 30 days of needing to review, let's do a conditional filter, let's clear the fields, which also sets the content approval to draft again and lets them know this needs to be reviewed. We have 3 different layers of approvals, 2 that are more individual based, and then a group vote, which is really complicated. We're having to go into SharePoint, grab the group members, and then they also wanted to be able to let multiple groups do the approval, sending out to vote. So that I'm not even going to attempt to show you that flow because we would need a workshop versus a 14-minute session. What the supervisors have been trained to do is we have numbered flows where they'll go into this SharePoint document library and they will run the flows in order, assign the reviewer, and then we just use for a selected file triggers to get all of these approvals going. We've also got approval reminders built into this, and we had to do a special step where we write all of the historical data about who's approved what and when to a SharePoint list, because one caveat we've discovered working with approvals and document libraries is if I open the document in the Word application, it won't let me save it. It won't if I've got a comment field longer than 255 characters. So we write all of that over. And then we have the last flow, which clears out all of the information because we've already written it to a separate list. We set content approval to approved, and we write an approved updated copy to a master library. But the most basic thing that I'm going to talk to you about is if you want to do a basic document library with approvals for your own purposes, you need a SharePoint document library with columns for who is the reviewer, which is a person or a group field. We have it set that you can pick multiple people. A supervisor review status field, which is a choice column with choices for yes, no, and pending. And then supervisor review comments multi-line text field. And then you go out to the samples gallery that David talked about and find my flow, request review and approval for a selected file. It looks like this. I'll show it to you in a moment, just so I'll walk you really quickly through the whole process for how you could get working with this flow today. But one thing I just really want to point out that we've learned the hard way through building this whole solution, if any action, any SharePoint action needs to be done to the document library, you need file is locked error handling if it fails. Because if the file is even opened by anyone, which a document library, yeah, the file is going to be opened by people, the actions will fail if the file is opened by someone. So you want error handling, or else your flow is going to stop over and over and over again, and you don't want that. So to the demo, I'm going to go to the samples gallery, and I just navigated right to mine, the request review and approval for a selected file. All you have to do is go into the solution folder, and all of these instructions are in the README. And I could just say, download this zip file. Then I go into my Microsoft Power Automate environment. This is updated import package legacy. And I select the file that I want to import, which is that zip file. I don't want to update. I just want to create this as new, and I can give it whatever name I want. I can select my connections and import it. And then all you have to do, you can customize this a lot more. Like David said, this is a starting point, but the main thing you have to do is X out my values for the site address and library name, and then put in your own. So this is actually a site called Doc Library, and the library name is called Documents. So to go over this flow, like I said, we have 4 selected files. We're collecting the reviewer email as a variable, and then we're just getting the information about the file. Now, this update metadata 1 and 2 variables, by the way, the code is also commented. I've got notes on everything that you'll be able to see to explain each part. This is a Boolean variable that we set to false, and that is because we use this every time we're trying to update that document library value. so that we can do the error checking, because when this variable is turned to true, we exit that error checking loop. I've added some extra stuff because we had lots of UAT and lots of use. This has been in place for about a year. And so they wanted to be able to put more than one supervisor in there. They wanted to be able to assign one flow multiple times. So that's why some of these extra variables are in here. As long as the file is here, we create an approval, we assign it to the reviewer email, which is a variable we've created. And then we have the error handling, which is really what I wanted to highlight. So this was a do until loop that will go until update metadata, which we know is set to false right now, is equal to true. So I'm trying to update the file properties and go in and say, here's the name of the supervisor who's reviewing this. This was another requirement from our lab that we were working with. So they wanted the supervisors to be able to just filter in a view and say, here are the 6 SOPs I need to review. Well, the file, if it's locked, it would have just terminated this flow and we would have had to start the approval over again. So instead, let me walk you through the logic of this really quick in a slide instead of trying to just do it in the flow. So any sort of SharePoint action, if we use configure run after, if it fails or timeout, we send an email that the file is locked. If it succeeds, we skip it. We don't need to send anyone an email. We have an extra step where we check if the file is locked by updating SharePoint. We're not actually updating it. We just have the action there and then we don't touch any of the fields. If it lets us update SharePoint, that means the file is closed and we're good to go. So we skip and we set update metadata to true, which ends the loop. If we can't update SharePoint, we set a delay of 10 minutes and then it restarts the loop, which is trying to update SharePoint again. So you can set that delay for whatever you want. I just have it set to 10 minutes. What we want this to look like is green, we can update the file properties, we skip sending an email, we check that the file is not locked by updating SharePoint, we skip that delay, we set update metadata to true. So that error handling is in here. The configure run after, what that looks like is we just go to the 3 dots, configure run after. So by default, it's set to is successful. So by setting it to has failed and has timed out, we make it so this flow will just continue to loop instead of timing out, erroring out, and having to start the approval all over again. I think I'm probably close to time, but basically we wait for the approval and then we do some extra stuff. I've got all the comments in here. We have error checking again, and then at the very end, we send a confirmation email that we've gone through the approval. One other thing that we did do with this solution that I'm pretty excited about after checking on is we also did turn the doc library into my first and only Power App. It's nothing fancy UI-wise. We designed it to mimic a legacy application they were already using. Just for change management, we wanted it to be something familiar to them. And in the labs, this is really easy for them because they could just click the arrow and open the SOP and view it, and they can filter by department. And I checked on the stats. I figured, okay, I showed them how to put it on their phones and do that, but they actually are still using it a year after launch. Last takeaways. You probably know most of this, but things that we always try to do in my organization: make a service account the owner of the flow and the connections, not your account, and share it with all admins so you can take a vacation sometimes. Rename the section and leave notes like you saw in my code, even if it's just for future you. Like I said, I did this a year ago, and so I would have no idea why I did some of the things I did. And then UAT. A lot of these tweaks that you see might not make sense immediately, but if you read the notes, we did it for a reason. It's because our users wanted those features in there, and so we wanted to make them happy and make it work. Lastly, I just want to cite Thrive Next Gen. They were the source for the basic file lock check pattern. They were the first source I found because I didn't bookmark the actual site I used. So just wanted to give them a shout out. All right, that is it for me. Hopefully I didn't talk too fast.
No, you were awesome, Lindsay. Fantastic. Really, really great stuff. I did have one question. What is this vacation thing that you speak of, right? Like, I think all of us are like,
I've heard rumor about it. I saw it on Instagram. There's trees and there's sand, but I don't know. I've still got to figure it out for sure.
Maybe we can set up a virtual call to talk about what that looks like now.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff.
Great idea.
Thanks, Lindsay. Really, really awesome demo. Appreciate that. All right, next up is Dion Taylor, Microsoft Teams approvals in Dynamics 365 using Power Automate. Dion, take it away.
I am taking it away. All right, let me share my screen here with you guys. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my screen okay.
Yep, looks great.
So perfect. All right. So before I start, I just wanted to introduce myself real quick to you guys. So my name is Dion Taylor. Exactly. It's not Diane. I usually start, slapping people when they call me Diane. Everybody gets one, and then, the slapping party starts. So anyways, I work for RSM as a director, TMC business apps. Sounds really fancy. It really isn't. So I'm on a pre-sales side, which means that I get to work right with the fun stuff, all the new stuff, getting on the horn with the customer and then kind of deciding on what would be good to show for them. So I also do in my spare time some authoring for LinkedIn Learning as well. And I'm a Microsoft MVP. So below I have a couple of links here. Feel free to follow that. I'm trying to write blog articles on a weekly basis. The same thing with my YouTube videos as well. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free, because I'm an open networker and I feel the more connections, the better, right? So, all right. So a little bit more about myself. So I was born and raised in the Netherlands, hence, right, the different pronunciation of my first name. I'm still fighting with my mom about that. Thanks, Mom. I used to be a hairdresser, which is kind of interesting, I think. It kind of proves that you don't have to have an IT background to start working with Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. I started working with Dynamics CRM, as it was called back in the day, in 2011. Again, not having any background or anything like that. And then I wanted to show you my pride and joy, my little Mr. Tucker here, big picture. I usually try to involve him in my videos as well, because he's such a little sweetie pie. But anyways, enough of that. So let's talk about what exactly we're going to be using here for those opportunity approvals, right? This is really like what was said earlier by Dave, right? We're using all of these different components. So we're looking at the Power Platform, right? We're looking at using Power Automate flows. We're also looking at using Microsoft Exchange. So this is Microsoft 365. We're using Microsoft Teams as well. And then, of course, mainly really attaching those approvals, making them viewable, I should say, right, to the folks that want to see what's going on in Dynamics 365. So I'm using Dynamics 365 sales for that. So let me explain to you first kind of what I'm trying to accomplish here, right? So I'm more of a fan of like show, tell, show, right? So first I'm going to kind of talk about what we're trying to accomplish here. Then I'm going to do a demo of how that works. And then we can kind of, if we have some time left, take a look under the hood and see what we're doing here. So the concept here is that we're going to have a sales rep that submits an approval for an opportunity by triggering a Power Automate flow. So obviously, right, this is usually automatic. It could be based on estimated revenue. It could be based on a particular customer type, whatever we want that to be, right? So in my example that I'm going to demo for you guys, I'm going to manually kick off that approval process just so you can kind of see how that works. So the first thing that the Power Automate flow then does is it's actually going to create a row in a custom table in Dynamics 365. And this table really holds all the data regarding approvals, right, that I'm using in Dynamics 365. So what then happens, Flow is then going to query for all the members of an office group. So I'm kind of utilizing these office groups as a distribution list in Microsoft Exchange. And each of those members then gets that team approval request sent to them through, right? We're going to be able to view that in Outlook, but we also can respond to that and view that in Microsoft Teams as well. So currently, if the approval is rejected, I don't have anything happening. My process just ends, but obviously you could have, something else happening there. Maybe they need to give additional information, whatever that might be. I just kept it simple, so nothing's going to happen. My process is just going to end there. But if it does get approved, then the row of the custom table that I just mentioned in Dynamics 365 with that approval information is going to be updated, right? So we can, for example, see if there were any notes there that were sent by the person who approved it. We can see who approved it, when it was approved, all of that information directly visible from within the opportunity because I'm tying those two together. And then lastly, you could do something like posting a message saying, hey, this opportunity has been approved to like a Teams channel or something like that. And then I also have, you can also have that email notification going to the original requester, but we already have that notification going through Teams as well, right? Saying like, hey, this has been approved or this has been denied or whatever that might be. So that's kind of what it is in a nutshell. Hopefully that makes sense. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to go and jump into Dynamics 365 and kind of show you how that works, right? So what I'm going to do here again, I said I'm going to trigger this manually. You will probably usually have a trigger set up, like I said earlier, like maybe estimated revenue or whatever that trigger might be. But I'm just going to go ahead and do that manually. So let me just park this this stage here of this business process flow here on the side. So what I'm doing here is approval required. Again, normally this would be automatic. So I'm going to say yes here because I'm demonstrating this. And I'm going to do an approval. So as soon as I save this, like you just saw in that slide, we're now going to have Power Automate creating that approval record. Now, the other thing that I added here is you can see here that the next couple of steps in this stage are now locked. So I can't move on in my business process flow, right? Not until after that approval has gone through, so to speak. So let me just show you here the approval history. So this is what just happened, right? We actually now have that approval record. That's that custom table here associated with that opportunity waiting to get approved, right? So at any point in time, the sales rep can go back in here and kind of see where we're at with that. Well, we're still waiting for the approval, which was submitted today at 11:29. Now, what happens then, because I'm submitting that Teams approval, is you can see here that I get that email message, right, from Power Automate basically saying, okay, this needs to be approved. And the nice thing is I can approve or reject directly here from my email, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Then if I look inside of Teams here, you can see here that in the activity here, that since I'm actually myself on that team that needs to approve it, you can see here that it's either myself or Chris or Derek that needs to approve this particular opportunity. But at this particular point, any of us can now approve this particular opportunity. Again, this really depends on how you set up your approvals. You could also do multi-step approvals, right? That's coming to Power Automate Flow as well. But I kept it very, very simple, just kind of to show the concept of this. So from here, what I can do is, again, also reject or approve. I'm going to actually approve that because, right, I already said with rejection, nothing is going to happen here. So I'm going to put my comments in here. I'm going to say, this is amazing. We have super people that are very excited about these approvals, as you can see here. Then I'm going to say, this is going to be approved. And what is happening now, and this is just part of that approval functionality here inside of Microsoft Teams, is that right now I'm getting that final status as the initiator of that approval, right? So I can see that this has been approved, and that what my Power Automate Flow then does, if I go back here, and let me go back to my opportunity and refresh that. Let me go back here to my approval history here. Oh, it's already open here. So we can now see that, first of all of my fields are now unlocked. I can move on in my sales process. And if I look at my approval history, we can now see, right, it was sent to the approval team and it was approved by me with my approver notes in here as well, just to keep track of that. Now, the nice thing about this as well is that now you can kind of build your charts on that as well, right? Because we're storing this data. I know these approvals are already stored in Dataverse, so you would be able to maybe attach those as well. I just wanted to do a custom table. So if you just wanted to separate some of that data out and then build your charts on that, you're going to be able to do that as well. So I still have a couple of minutes left. So I did want to show you my Power Automate flow here. So basically what's going to happen here is I'm updating an opportunity here, and that's kind of what is triggering, right, that flow, that Power Automate flow. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my group members, and this is really from that office group, right, which kind of functions as that distribution list here. So that's all I'm doing here, just getting those members here. And once I have those members, I'm grabbing their email addresses, and then I'm joining those email addresses, because again, normally you have more than just one approver in there, right? And then I'm starting that approval in Microsoft Teams. So I'm just going to say, hey, I'm assigning this to any member, right, in my office group here. So, and then I'm putting in here which opportunity this is regarding. I'm kind of hard coding a link in here and then just plugging in the ID. And then I also have a link to that opportunity, right? Because that might be easier for people to actually be able to visit that opportunity and kind of see, hey, is this something that actually needs to be approved? So then from here, I'm really looking at that outcome, right? You can kind of see here if no, oh, I actually have something happening. Yeah, it's just updating my my approval record in Dynamics saying it's been denied, right? And then I'm like updating, let's see here, this is my approval, right? Who was the approver? What are the notes? The approver ID, and whether or not what that status reason was. Oh, so this is equal to reject. So this is if it is approved. If it is rejected, I'm doing the same thing, right? I'm basically updating that with that, right? It's been a status reason of rejected. And then lastly, right, we can actually post a message to a channel in Teams as well. And I think I have that in here. Here is my sales approval. So that was my last step, right? Opportunity, the status has been changed to approved. So kind of showing this as well. And again, this is kind of just showing you what we can do, not just within Dynamics 365, but within the entire stack, right? We're using all these different tools here together, so to speak. So one last thing, and obviously I'm sure that you guys are aware of this, that this solution can obviously be used for other tables as well, right? You don't have to just use this on opportunities. So for example, I added this to Dynamics 365 field service where certain work orders might need approval prior to scheduling that work. So what we've done here is I actually added a not to exceed field, as you can see here on the work order, and the account field also has that data in there. So then what happens is if my total amount here, my estimated total amount is actually higher than my not to exceed, it will kick off that flow. So that's kind of, just giving you another example of ways where this could be used. So hopefully that was helpful. David, I'm going to send it back to you.
Awesome, Dion. Thank you so much. This is really cool. Again, really loving the overlapping technologies here, everybody. This is a great showcase of how all of them work together flawlessly. So thank you, Dion. Really looking forward to your next demo. All right, next up is Norm Young, how to connect Dataverse to Microsoft Teams. Yet another fantastic Better Together story. Norm, take it away.
Thanks, David. Well, I hope everyone's enjoying their summer. I know I've been so far, and I've been doing a lot of camping. And when you're camping, it's really important to have the things that you need quickly at your disposal to make that camping experience more convenient. And not that this is a demo about camping, but it reminds me of how I pack up my trailer and the things I need to do at work need to have a level of convenience for my users. And so what I want to talk to you today is how I was able to take our Dataverse solution at work, which is tyGraph, and connect it to Microsoft Teams. So let's get into it. And so the scenario is that we have at tyGraph hundreds of customers, and we keep them in dedicated customer channels inside of Microsoft Teams. And as you can imagine, finding a channel inside of a team can be very hard to do at scale, and we are at scale. And of course, some might think that maybe we should just simply have a team per customer, but then you have a different issue at hand. And the thing that's very important for us is that those files, those customer-centric files and those conversations are just absolutely critical to our customer success story. And so having to repeatedly go back and search for a channel manually to find a message to take action or a file for context, it's very inefficient. And our technical problem is that we're using a Dataverse solution and there's no native Teams integration into Dataverse. It exists in Dynamics 365, but it doesn't exist in Dataverse, at least not at this time. And so our solution was to use Power Automate to collect or harvest all of those customer channels across those different teams, create a mechanism where we could link the account record to that Teams channel, and then have a open Teams button on the model-driven command bar that would be dynamic when it was linked and populated. So let's look at the overview of the solution. So multiple customers, teams inside of Teams. We have a flow that harvests all the different channels, and we populate that into a Dataverse table called channels. We also have the accounts table that we're leveraging from the common data model. And we will use the model-driven app, and the users will be able to locate or identify that customer channel, which will probably never have the same name as the account record name, create that linkage using a flow, and then they'll be able to click a button, won't have to traverse all those different teams and channels to find the context where they're working. And so we'll use a combination of functionality inside of the model-driven app, Power Automate, leverage Teams calls, and also finally, we're using something in PowerFX to make that button dynamic. So the first thing that we have to do is perform that initial harvest of all of the different teams that exist for our customers. So in this case, we did this like a backfill operation. Execute it once per customer team, we'd have to iterate through those different teams. So that's why we had that var team GUID variable that would get the team info. Then we'd run again and get the channel info. We would compose and parse all of that information. So we would have data that we could use for the add new row. And then finally, we would do a replace. So when you're doing that list channels action, the result coming back would be the link, and the link would be HTTPS. If you replace that with MS Teams and then the rest of the URL, it will open up the native app. And that's the experience that we wanted for our users. So we do a little replace on that web URL, and that allowed it to open up into the Teams client. So once that was done, harvest across all those different teams, and we have the baseline of that information, and that is added to our custom Dataverse table, then we're able to move on to the next step. The next step is now that daily run, where we're going to run multiple times a day and check against the current customer team. We have a debug variable that we'll use to get like debug information. We create an object for all of the different parameters that we'll need inside of the flow. We use scopes to try and break out the work, handle errors. And so we'll go to the current team for the customers, and we'll use that var team GUID. We'll do the same thing to get the channels. You need to have both team and the channels. We'll compose this information so we can use it again later for populating that Teams channel table. Open that up. And here what we're doing is we're going to list all the rows in that channel, and we're only taking active most recent channel. And so I'm going to filter the results of that list channels to just get the last known record. So I can only show the last record. And so when I'm inserting, I'm only going to insert the new rows after that last one is created. And this is where you see I'm doing work with composing and manipulating the maximum date. And then I take that date and I use it to filter that array that it came through of that result set. So I'm saying the create time is greater than or equal to the variable date that it pulls back. And then finally, we're able to take that array and grab all of those new channels and plug them into our custom table called Teams channels. And so now we'll have this table populated, not real time, but pretty darn close. I'll run it like 4 times a day. We don't add enough customers to do it more than that. So that works out well. And again, I'm doing this replace on the HTTPS to MS Teams because that will click the button, it won't open the browser, it'll open up the Teams client, which is a nice experience for my users. I do a catch inside of this workflow, my production level flows. I have some data-driven components where I will get the admin of the system, their information, so I can send them debug if there is an issue, and I'll take the results from that first scope that we saw in the flow for the try. And that will be composed and formatted in a way that I can send it to the admin should there be a failure inside of Teams as an adaptive card. And it's a very nice experience. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Now we're in the Power Apps doing our model-driven app work, and we're going to update the command bar. So I go in and I edit the command bar, and I'm going to look at the main form of the account table. So we'll edit that. And here we can see the button that I've created. Most of them, except for like 3 of them, are the ones that would come standard with the account. So we create a new button and we call it the Open Teams channel. That's the label. And then we'll tell it to use an icon, and we'll use the MS Teams icon. I didn't have to upload this, it just existed there already. And on the action, we'll run a formula. So the formula on select is to launch that channel URL that has been linked to the account record. So the first part of the demo, we were harvesting information. There's a linkage that still has to happen, but this is what the button will do. And then we have to show or hide the button depending on whether it's populated or not. And that's what this check is. So if that channel URL value in the account table is not populated, don't show it. Well, why'd you go to the account table? Well, doing a launch, at least in my experience, doing a launch from the related table and not the account table didn't work, and that's why I had to do that. Okay, next one. This is what the user experience looks like. We're in our model-driven app and we're looking at a test account. You'll notice that in this configuration tab, we have a customer channel. None is listed, so I'm going to find one that is linked to my test account. We find it, we create the linkage, so now I've done a lookup, and I'll save the record, and I'll come in and I'll execute the flow to link to Microsoft Teams. This should only ever be a one-time activity for my users. You can't do any fancy pattern matching with names because you'll never get users to link or create the name the same as the account. So at that point, if I refresh the record, go back into my configuration tab, we will see the link, including that MS Teams. We will see that the Teams button is now available, and if I click on it, I get the experience to open up inside of the browser or Teams, but we wanted to go into Teams, and we dynamically come to the channel in question. And you have to keep in mind, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of channels. Finally, we use notifications to send a confirmation that that action of the linkage was successful. If there was a failure, they would get a notification there as well, but then a backend notification would go to the administrator of the system. Right, so what does that link to Teams look like? Well, it's executed on demand. We have the debug variable, we have more parameters that we're using to make the flow work. A lot of it is for data-driven elements that I've defined. We have the scope, and the scope now is going to, again, list the admin table to understand where to send notifications to if there's a problem. We're going to get the ID for the account table. Ever so important, because I'm going to have to copy a piece of information over. Now I need to check to make sure that the person didn't run the flow without linking it first. And that's what this condition is doing. I'm checking for the length of that value in that column. And if it's not populated, then we shouldn't be running it. But in this case, it is. So I'm going to go now over to my Teams channel table inside of Dataverse, and I'm going to get the value, make sure it matches, and then I'm going to compose that URL, and then I'm going to set it in my parameters. Hopefully this animation is working smoothly. And so I come into accounts, and now I'm setting the variable, using the variable, to update the channel URL. And I come down and I will list the users now. Now, why am I listing the users? Well, if I want to send a notification, I'm going to have to find out who to send it to. And that's what I'm doing here. So I list the users, I get that information, parse it out, and I'm able to get their, I think it's their Azure Active Directory ID or something like that. And then I can send that notification to them. So I've got the owner of the record, the person who's executed the task, and now I can go add a new record to the notifications table, give the account name in the title that we saw in what the functional experience looks like, use the success icon. Here we go back into our system users, and boom, that goes out and they get that message. Right, now, so that's like the business side of it. The back end is to do the catch. The catch is to catch any types of errors that may have happened. So the admin knows to go in there. So the adaptive card, again, takes all of that debug information that I can trap and sends it to the admin to use. So that's all good there. So really blasted through that. I wish it was that fast to develop versus to talk about it now. But it may not seem like a massive improvement. It's more of a marginal gain. And what we did, and I'm a big fan of marginal gains, we've added value to the user experience by removing that manual lookup. Like literally, you have to think of all of the different named customers that might exist in your organizations, and we would have people searching through different teams trying to find these channels, and then sometimes using the wrong information, which is incredibly inefficient use of their time. And so we were able to remove all of that friction, and we give time back to the users. The user experience is driven out of that model-driven app, so they'd have their own hub for work inside of the business, and it allows them to focus on that higher value business of work. And these margins over time, they add up to something significant. So I really blasted through that. And again, I really wish the development time for that would have been equally, but it was not. So thank you so much for the opportunity to come here. I'm happy to keep this conversation going. You can find me on my website or on Twitter, LinkedIn. Always happy to have the conversation continue about all things Microsoft 365 or the Power Platform.
Really, really good stuff. Really appreciate it. And again, just to underscore, don't discount those marginal gains, right? It's the straw that broke the camel's back. So those little things add up in a good way when you're making those little marginal gains, and every little minute back throughout the day is a benefit for us. So really fantastic stuff. Thank you so much. Let me share here and we will wrap up. We want to thank all of our presenters today. Really amazing stuff. Lindsay, Dion, and Norm, a really great demos today. Thank you all for showing up and sharing with the community your amazing, fantastic solutions. Resources. Let's talk about what you can get more out of in this amazing community. We have a number of resources, training resources, community samples, videos, platform samples, all kinds of opportunities for you to get more involved. All these links are available to you. Don't hesitate to use any one of them. There are a number of community calls available as well. The Microsoft 365 platform call, this is a call that comes with direct information from Microsoft. All presenters are directly from Microsoft. It is on a summer break right now, so it will restart in September. But we also have adaptive cards, Microsoft Identity Platform, Office add-ins, Power Platform, which is where you're at now. We also have the PNP, Microsoft 365 and Power Platform biweekly call. And the Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework biweekly call as well. Those both occur on Thursdays. Do you need to remember all these links? Absolutely not. aka.ms/m365/calls will get you access to all that information. And recording will be available soon in the YouTube channel for Microsoft 365 community. You can access that at aka.ms/m365pnp/videos. You can subscribe as well as subscribe to the Power Platform channel as well. Follow us on Twitter at Microsoft 365 Dev at M365PNP. The next call is 1 month in August 17th, 2022, same time, 8 a.m. Pacific time. You can access the invite if you've not already gotten it. You can access all of the invites at aka.ms/Power Platform community for this call, and the rest of the invites at aka.ms/M365PNP. Thank you, everybody, for being a fantastic part of this community. Have a wonderful rest of your week.